poverty does exist in Australia,
Okay.
and the poverty line's creeping up through the middle class and affecting the middle class even now.
Australia has a system to protect the people, underprivileged people.
Yes, it does, but it hasn't been working for years. And now, because of the pandemic, it's being exposed for what it is, which is it's broken, it's punitive, it's incredibly difficult to access through Centrelink. And people have been coming to me consistently in the last 6 months saying that they never knew that it was so hard. Well, I set up the Welfare Alliance 6 months ago to help people with Centrelink claims and to navigate and to help with the process. I mean, the story I've been hearing is that they applied, they thought it would be really straightforward, they waited 2, 3, 4 weeks, they never heard back from Centrelink, they rang, their applications hadn't been processed or they were required to give more information, and in that time that elapses, people are living in fear. That's the story I hear. People are, how can I pay the rent? How can I provide food for myself, my family? How can I buy medication? How can I do anything? And then coming to me and saying, but I've rung them, I've consistently rung them, I get a different story every time. Why is it so difficult? Why is the rate so low? I can't live off this. I can't pay the rent. I'm scared. The rate, well, as it stands now, it's around $650 a fortnight. Yes, and with the new increases, it went up from $38 a day to $41 or $42 a day. The Inner West, the average rate of rent is for a single person $380 a week. That's why people are coming to the food pantry, and hearing their stories as they come through. They talk to me, they see my sign, is Centrelink doing your head in, and immediately they're coming and telling me their story. And it's the same story every time. I'm living in fear, I can't pay the rent, I've got no food. What is the food pantry? Well, the Addison Road Community Organisation started the food pantry, but it is a mini supermarket where food is rescued and donated through supermarkets, restaurants, fresh food, groceries, and the food is brought back to the food pantry. Now you can come in and buy groceries at about a quarter of the price, so that's all the staples, healthy food, dairy, meat, free vegetables every day, free frozen meals every day, and free bread. And if you can't afford to pay the reduced rate, we'll give it to you for free.
A bit extra for
They do get
every child.
child allowance. That's minimal. And on top of that, like we're talking about rent and food. Now on Jobseeker you're expected to look for work. There was an exemption last year, but that exemption finished. Now people that are on Jobseeker are expected to look for work, expected to go to their job provider once a week, expected to log on and apply for jobs. So my question is, how on earth do they afford internet access? Because the government doesn't allow for that. How do they get bus fare to go to these job interviews? Because people can't even afford bus fare. If you're on Jobseeker, you get a minimal concession. So for an average trip, probably $5 to $10 to go for a job interview. Now that's the story I keep hearing too, is I haven't even got the money. I haven't got the time, I'm so stressed. They're asking us to write CVs. I don't know how to do that. There is no support at the job network. So that's another system that's flawed and it's corrupt.
Why is corrupt?
Because when that system was established 15 years ago, it was the contracts for the job network providers were given to ex-politicians, to big business, to churches. So For every person that comes in on Jobseeker, the government gives them allowances up to $10,000 and bonuses for fanning them out to work, fanning them into courses that they don't want to do. And really, it's not about helping the person, it's about money. The accumulation of money. That's how corrupt it is. With the new announcements made last week by Scott Morrison in relation to raising the rate, he raised the rate $25 a week, so that was equated to $3.50 a day. But behind that announcement were all new provisions applied to Jobseeker participants, and that was that you had to look for double the amount of work per month, 20 to 30 jobs a month, and that you could not refuse a job. If you were offered a job, you cannot refuse that job, and the employer can report you. Now, when questioned about this, the Minister for Social Services was asked that question. So what happens if a woman or even a vulnerable person, a man, feels threatened by an employer? What can they do? Do they have any recourse? And the minister was stumped. She actually said, we'll deal with that when the situation arises. So no, it's becoming dangerous. And with all the revelations going on in Parliament, it's not surprising. The way Centrelink does work is they withhold information on purpose. It's policy. They don't give you the information that you need to submit a successful application. So when I started my process on DSP, I realised that only 15% of people who apply for disability support a pension are approved. Now that was shocking, and really I was living in fear at that point. I was on Jobseeker, I couldn't work, I was sick, I was at risk of homelessness, but thankfully I had support around me to help me through that process. Now what I found, and we found along the way, was that you have to write applications in a particular way as per the legislation. Now they don't tell you that, and the legislation is a legal document. So if you go out, if you don't remain and write your application within the legislation, they'll kick you out, and they won't tell you why. So I was absolutely outraged. I eventually got the disability support pension, but I had to put 2 applications in, and it took me 2 years. So the way I felt getting all the information and support that I had along the way, I just thought I have to do something with this. So I'm a scientist. I used all the logic at my command to put together information in a really concise and clear way to give to people before they put their applications in. And it's the same with Jobseeker. I'll sit and listen to people's stories, and I've listened to hundreds in the last 6 months. And really all people need is a friendly ear, some support and direction. So simple things that I say to people are, okay, you need to put the application in person, go with the support worker, treat it as a job in itself, so follow up every couple of days, take logs, just really simple things that people wouldn't have expected that they would have to do. But you have to do it. You have to make them accountable, because really when you go into an office, you are face to face with the person, but they can't give you much information these days. It's all very closed. The system has been closing down for a few years. It's been privatised. It's basically inhumane. If you look at Scott Morrison's announcements when we were coming out of the pandemic, and he was pushing for economic recovery and to get Australia working again, the announcements he made around ending JobKeeper and Jobseeker this year were that he didn't want to disincentivise people, which is just a fancy word for saying a pushback into let's push these people out, let's fan them out. And, you know, you can see it even now, you know, like it's become even more punitive. Like you will take whatever job we give you. This is, we're doing, it's very paternalistic. It's very, we will look after you, but you need to do these things for us.
Okay.
And people don't have any right. When I needed help with all of this, there wasn't a lot of support. So, you know, this and what can we do about it? The consequences are, there's been a lot of talk about mental health issues, suicide, domestic violence. And there's been a lot of money thrown into those areas. Where it's been going, I don't know. Usually to the police and to organisations that are already set up. But to me, the stress that people are feeling about living in poverty, not being able to pay their rent, not being able to buy food, not being able to look after their children the way that they want to look after them, not being able to buy medication, school books, clothes, that all speaks to mental health, and all speaks to suicide, to drug and alcohol abuse, to domestic violence. I mean, you have people living in fear, and I know because I've lived in fear, that's all you can think about. I would wake up in the middle of the night. That's a story I hear all the time. I can't sleep. I'm under stress. I don't know which way to turn. And then people turn to drugs, alcohol, isolation, feeling like they're alone, feeling like no one cares about them. I think that's the best thing I can offer people, is an ear, a connection. I can help them, direct them to the food pantry. I can help them, direct them to agencies that can help them with bills. That's the great thing about being at Addison Road, is we're a community and it's all about solving problems. So if I can't help, I'll go in and see Rosanna or Govinda or anyone and say, can you help me? So I had a foreign exchange student, a young woman who was stuck here from Russia, who was fainting and really ill and couldn't present to the hospital because she didn't have health insurance. So I went to the staff here at Addison Road and we have a list of doctors that will see people. So that's it. It's connection. It's community. That's why it's so amazing to be here. And also, I'm thinking beyond it, and so are we now, about protesting. Like, we have to make changes. So I want to raise people's awarenesses on a bigger scale, because I have stories to tell that have been told to me. So that needs to get out there. It needs to be delivered in a way it's going to touch people's hearts, minds and spirits, you know.
You want to tell us one of those stories?
Oh gosh.
Or any story? Or you prefer to do another interview with just on stories?
Yeah. I guess it's the story of all of a sudden people realise that they're not so safe. So young couples living in the inner west who are living from paycheck to paycheck, when COVID hit, they realised that they were pretty much a couple of months away from being homeless. You know, the people that they would pass coming home at Newtown Station, living on the sidewalk there, because that's a growing concern, I can tell you. There are people with suitcases and mattresses living in Newtown. So the people that they would pass pre-COVID, for whatever reason, on their way home, I think it suddenly hit them that that could be them pretty quickly. Now that's the fear. That's the story I've been told. And desperation. And then people then going to Centrelink because they'd lost their jobs and having a hell of a time trying to apply for Jobseeker. And realising now that that has changed, that the rate's gone down, that they're going to be in crisis mode again pretty soon. And the fact that the government's saying that there are jobs available for everyone is a lie. It's just a lie. And people know it. So using that momentum, and people's awareness now is like, oh my God, this is the reality. this is the country we live in. We thought it was safe. We were kind of lulled into that false sense of security, and now it's gone.